Hi there, welcome to a channel called English for Emerson. We do basic English reading and writing on this channel and a whole lot of other stuff too. And you always get a lot of boring lectures on this channel, which is, that's really the basis of the channel. It should be called Boring Lectures for Emerson. That's what it should be called. And boy, you're going to get one today. Here we go. You need something to write with and something to write on. We're going to start with the most common word in the English language. A straight line down and then bar it across from left to right. For a capital T, then H. And we know that the ends with an E. Usually E's at the end of the words are silent, but not the case here because there's no other vowel in the word before it. The E does make a sound. The bigger You know that bigger has two G's? Not sure why, but it does. Bigger. See if I can squeeze in, well, let's see. No, I better put it over here. They. You know, they is a weird word. Because there's no A in it. Do you know that T-H-E-Y spells they? Can you believe it? The ending E-Y can make the sound A. Why didn't they just make it T-H-A-Y? I don't know why. It's so confusing. But I don't know what to say about this. This is an extremely annoying word. That spells they. There's no way to make sense of it. It should be the ending E. I don't know why they didn't make it T-H-A-Y. Incomprehensible to me. Sometimes I get so angry about English because it makes no sense. This word is incomprehensible. It makes no sense. But that spells they. Okay? I'm sorry. I apologize for it. That's how bad that one is. I have to even apologize. The bigger they are, that's why you have to practice and memorize, because a lot of English words make no sense, and that makes no sense. The bigger they are. Now that's an ugly E right there, Ross. Ugly E, Ross. That's better. The bigger they are, it's A-R-E is R. That's a silent E. Now, why is this E make a noise and this one here is silent? Well, because there's another vowel in that word before this one. Therefore, it's silent. There is no other vowel here, so that one does make a noise. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. We're going to have a comma. Little pause there. The harder Oh, I messed that up. That's not right. Sorry. Harder. If you hear noise, there's people working outside in the yard. Working on the fence. That's what that's about. And they've been at it for days. I'm rebuilding the fence in the neighbor's yard. Okay, the bigger they are, comma, the harder they fall. You know what's interesting? Look at all these E's I've got. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 E's in this sentence. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. I count 7 E's. And not one of those E's makes the E sound. Isn't that interesting? We got an A, silent, A. Not one of those E's out of all those makes the sound E, or even anything close to an E, not even an E. The E can do a heck of a lot of different things, and a lot of things that don't make sense. I don't know what else to tell you. Sometimes I just want to throw up my hands about this English. Just too much. But you got to do it. One thing about English, it's hard to read and write, but it's easy to understand. So everything balances itself out. Well, now that's not quite true. It's easy to understand if people speak clearly. If people don't speak clearly, which most English speakers do not speak clearly, they mumble everything. It's very difficult to understand when people mumble their words and don't speak up. And most people in this day and age do not speak clearly. And it drives me I just about have fits sometimes. At the restaurant, for example. Oh my gosh. Nice people down there. And I've gotten along well with just about everybody down there at the restaurant. Nice people. The boss is a good guy, but boy, I tell you what, I have a heck of a time understanding people. It gets loud in the restaurant with all the motors and the fans and the ovens that are going, and people mumble and don't speak clearly. It's very, very difficult. Most people in our modern life do not speak clearly. I've gone off about this in other lessons, but it's annoying. Other than that, English is easy to understand. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. What's this mean? You know, when I was in high school, I was about maybe 17 years old. I was way into Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man Randy Savage. The big professional wrestlers body slamming each other. All this kind of stuff. And I was always talking about the Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan. Oh yeah, baby, yeah. All this kind of stuff. And there was this little guy. I think his name was Jimmy. He said, Ross, you like wrestling? I said, I love it. They're always out there beating the tar out of each other and yelling and carrying on. And they're so funny. He says, well, we should go down to the downstairs into the gym sometime. There's some wrestling mats down there. We should wrestle. I said, I don't know about that. I said, I don't know how to wrestle. He says, oh, no, it'll be fun. Well, this guy suckered me into it. He knew how to wrestle. He was a little guy. Probably almost 1.5 feet short. He was probably 5 feet tall. Tiny little guy. He took me down to the wrestling room. And before I knew it, he had me up in the air. And he slammed me down. I didn't even get the chance to touch him. He just took me out at the knees. And down I went. He said, it's not as easy as it looks on TV, is it? I said, no. No, it's not quite as easy as it looks on TV. He took me right down. Tiny little guy. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. You know, this is so true. Do you know who the heavyweight champion of the world is right now in boxing? I'll put up a picture of him. His name is, I think it's Alexander Usyk, I think is his name. Do you know that in almost every boxing match that he fights, he is smaller than his opponent? He doesn't weigh as much, and he's usually shorter than the person that he fights. But he's maybe the greatest heavyweight champion of all time. Maybe even better than Muhammad Ali. He is so good. And those bigger guys cannot beat him. He just chops them down. Why is he able to do that? Because he has better strategy, which is like his plan of the fight. And he has better techniques. He's more skilled. And he's in better condition. And maybe he's even more determined. I don't know why he's an incredibly good boxer. But he always beats up these bigger guys. It's unbelievable how good he is. Unbelievable. You know, it's true throughout life. Yes, it's true that sometimes bigger, the bigger person or animal or whatever, sometimes they do win. But a lot of times it's the smaller one that's able to chop down the bigger one. Think about it. If you got a little person, just to say even a person my size with an axe, I'll put up an axe on the screen here, and I go up to the biggest tree in the world, and I start chopping away at it. Eventually, who's going to win that battle? Well, the person, me, the one with the axe. Unless I give up, eventually I'm going to chop through that thing and it's going to fall down. And I tell you what, when that big tree comes down, it's going to make a heck of a smash. It's going to make a heck of a smash. It's not, size is not that much of an advantage. It's somewhat of an advantage, but it's also can be what you'd call a liability. Means it's a weakness sometimes to be big. Like, for example, when I got in was wrestling that guy Jimmy back when I was in high school, my size was not an advantage. It was a weakness. Why is that? Because he was closer to my knees. He was close to my knees. I was far away from being able to grab his knees. His knees were way down there, and I'm way up here. But he was way down here close to my knees. He just jumped right down, grabbed my knees, and before I knew it, I was on my back. I'm telling you, I fell hard too. It was a long way down. And when I hit the bottom, boom, it got my attention. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Think about it. If you chop down a tree that's as tall as me with an axe, it's not going to make a very big sound when it hits the ground. But if you chop down a tree that's 200 feet tall, boom, when that thing comes down, it's going to make a great big boom when it hits the ground. It's true about this with everything. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. You'll hear this often in English, and it's so true. And I'll see you next time on English for Emerson. Bye-bye.